Hey y'all! So before we get into the games, I just want to quickly go over my reaction to the banned and restricted announcement.
This stupid dog won't die! Everything's gonna be alright now. I got this. You wanted to know who I am? What the hell are you talking about? You'll see!
So back to your regularly scheduled Blitz replay analysis. This game 1, I'm going first, and as I'm against Benji, I've elected to bring in my Grasp of the Arknight instead of my Quill Hand. So the logic behind that is that when I have Grasp and Skeletor and Skullcap, the opposing Benji needs to have Razor Reflex plus Ancestral Empowerment or like a second Spring Tidings to be able to, do the Spring Tidings play. So the point of the Grasp is just to force my opponent to wait until they have those other pieces before they can actually go off. So it buys us a lot of time. Also, we're going first, so we could pitch into it. So as you saw there, I pitch away my Rattlebones because does nothing when my graveyard's empty. Pitch Rattlebones and a blue, made a Rune Chant, and played Oath of the Arknight for a second Rune Chant. Don't let my opponent filter at all. And I went ahead and arsenaled my Amplify, which is honestly not a great thing to arsenal. It really can get stuck in there. But I figured since I was ending the turn with 2 Rune Chants, I should be alright. My opponent starts with a Kodachi, which I can block, and have a pretty awkward hand here. Was really hoping to see a Morven Skies, so then I could, Morven Skies and just pitch a small amount to play the Amplify from Arsenal. But looking at this hand, we don't actually have an amazing way to use the Amplify, or, even to use all the cards at our disposal right now. So since this is likely to be the only attack I can block from my opponent this turn, I'm just going to go ahead and block. Okay, opponent comes with 100 wins for 1, which I can't block, so we take it. And then it's a Whelming Gust Wave. This is actually coming in for 3, so I actually can block this. But looking at my hand, I'm gonna need my 3 remaining cards, so pretty unfortunate. I really thought my Benji opponent wouldn't allow me to block anymore, so really wishing I saved my blue shrill to block this instead of the Kodachi. Cool. So on our turn, we pitch to play the Oath, and now our Rune Flash is free, and then we still have 1 floating to swing Rosetta after this. So still somewhat of an efficient play, but I don't like ending the turn with no Rune Chance when I have an Amplify in Arsenal, but that's kind of just the way we drew. Okay, my opponent takes the Rune Chance and then puts armor in front of this, so that's always a scary sign, because that tells me my opponent has some or all of the combo pieces. Yeah, the Rune Flash was coming in for 5 physical because of the Oath. And now we Rosetta for a total of 5, and they just take it all, so yep, we can expect either an additional Spring Tidings or a Razor plus Ancestral. Okay, they start with a blue Crane Dance, and now we're in a very interesting position where clearly my opponent needs this to hit to be able to use all the equipment to give this go again. So I'm in this weird spot where I could block this with armor, force my opponent to use the attack reacts on this, so that they don't have it for the Spring Tidings. But then, if I put too much armor in front of this, and my opponent has a Razor Reflex, which gives this go again regardless of whether it hits, then I won't have any more armor to block the Spring Tidings with, because my armor will be on the chain. So this is just one of those things where it's just really hard to play around, everything. Like, I play around one thing and then the other thing blows me out. So I like to put Skullcap in front of this, which is actually a really bad decision. That's the really dumbest thing I could have done. because of the breaking scales that's like right there in front of me. Like I just completely missed. I just had a complete brain fart moment. So my opponent doesn't even need to use a card to attack react to do this. And if you're wondering, oh, they used it on this, that means they won't have it for Spring Tidings. They actually can't even use Breaking Scales on Spring Tidings because Spring Tidings doesn't have combo. So this was just a complete brain fart by me. I should have put, if I was going to put armor in front of this, it should have been a 2-block, not my Skullcap. So anyway, yep, they Breaking Scales it. I take 1 and they activate all the equipment. Get their 2 energy, all their cards with combo has go again, and they search for Spring Tidings and banished it. Okay, and then a Rising Knee Thrust. This is coming in for 3 because of Benji. So clearly, since this is the turn where my opponent is going off, I decide I'm going to block this. I need to block as much as I can, and this is probably the last attack that I can block. So let's go ahead and block it. Okay, Gust Wave for 2. Okay, and then the Spring Tidings comes out. My opponent still has 2 unknown cards. So I just put my entire 5 block in front of it, and I basically force them to have Razor Reflex plus something else. Like, it could be a second Razor Reflex since they have 2 floating, or Razor Reflex plus Ancestral to be able to get through this. But in the end, what they have is just another Spring Tidings. So, you know, but like I said earlier, if they had the double attack react, they get blown out by this. If they didn't, then I only put like 1 piece of equipment in front of this, then I get blown out by an attack react. So just try to play around something, and my opponent had the other thing. Then they draw up, and we're just taking a bunch of unblockable damage. Okay, this Flood of Force has the combo effect. And they reveal the top card, and it's a Razor Reflex. It's not a card with combo, so this is actually only coming in for 1. So we got lucky there. Take another 1. And then opponent finishes off with a Kodachi. So now we are in a very interesting position because we can actually block this Kodachi. The question is whether we should. So given that we are at 3 and we know our opponent's going to draw a Razor Reflex next turn, all my opponent needs to do is just come in with like an unblockable attack and then Razor Reflex on top of it, and I'm dead. But for them to do that, they would need 3 cards remaining. 1 card is the unblockable attack, and 1 card to pitch, and the last card is the Razor Reflex. So I need to figure out a line that takes at least 2 cards from my opponent. And I realized that blocking this Kodachi will not give me that line. Since, you know, we drew 3 reds this turn and a yellow Marvin Skies, there's only 1 line that I could find that actually lets me threaten more, 2 or more cards from my opponent. So I actually like not to block this. Yep. So here we go. We start the Marvin Skies and then play the Meet and Greet. And now this Meet and Greet on hit will create 3 rune chants, 1 from his own effect and 2 from the Marvin Skies. So, but our opponent sees that we have no floating. So they might hedge that, you know, I'm just trying to build up rune chants for the next turn because there's no way I swing Rosetta after this. So I'm hoping they, like, okay, either they block 2 to stop me from getting the rune chants, in which case they can't do their Razor Reflex thing anyway, or they just block 1 and give me all these rune chants, and they probably think I'm not swinging Rosetta Stone, and that's the end of my turn. But I have Amplify and Arsenal, which I can play for free if they give me this extra rune chants. So in like either case, I'm feeling pretty good about this line. Yep, my opponent lets it hit, and then I can just go ahead and amplify for free from Arsenal. So now there's 4 rune chants, 6 physical, and it definitely takes another 2 cards from my opponent's hand. So yeah, feeling good about it. It was a bit of a risky play, but I think in either case we get rewarded for that play. If they block 2, we're good. If they just use 2 cards to block the Meet and Greet, we feel good. They use 1 like what they did here, because my opponent understands that they just need to do the unblockable attack and Razor Reflex and I'm dead. So yeah, I was hedging my opponent would try and take the risk on their end. So I take some rune chance and they block 4. And go down to 2. So we got opponent's entire hand, and now we have tempo firmly back on our side. And we're feeling good. So awkward hand here again. Yeah, we only have 1 attack, which is the Shrill. But we have Sonata that can potentially get us more attacks. So the question here is whether I want to pitch into the Sonata. So just sort of walking through some, like what happens if I whiff. Like if I pitch, say, my blue Morven Skies into Sonata and I whiff, I can still play the Shrill, I guess, but I will still leave my opponent some cards in hand. Doesn't feel very good. So I'd rather just Sonata, and even if I whiff, I actually still have an alternative play. Cool. So Sonata, and we do whiff, which is unfortunate. Like we do have an alternative play here, but I was really hoping I wouldn't, need to do this, but alright. Sonata gets banished, and we go ahead and play Morven Skies, which triggers Viserai. So now we can pop a Skeletor, and we're only using the attack discount here, but it's worth it. So now I can play the Shrill for free. This has go again from the Morven Skies, coming in for 2 rune chance and 5 physical. Still have a card in hand to swing Rosetta after this. Okay, opponent pitches to block 2 rune chants. Now this is coming in for 5. If they don't block this fully, I get an additional rune chant from the Morven Skies hit trigger. Okay, they do block this fully, and then now we can just Rosetta for 1, 2, and 2. And my opponent can, use that 1 floating to stop the rune chant, but with their remaining card, they can only block 2, like of the physical, and they die to the arcane. So we call it here, and that was game number 1. So on to game number 2 here, and this time I'm going second. Again, I've elected to run Grasp, although it might be better to run Quill Hand if you're going second. This is something I haven't completely figured out yet. It would need more testing. So specifically against Benji. Usually in most of the matchups you always run Quill Hand. But against Benji it might be better to run Quill Hand if going second. Because, so while Grasp buys you more time, because it requires your Benji opponent to get more pieces, Quill Hand sort of shortens the game. So in a sense it does a similar thing. It basically still shortens the amount of time your Benji opponent has, if that makes any sense. So yeah, it shortens the amount of time the Benji opponent has to find the combo pieces. So I'm not sure. I'm going to test it more to figure that out. I wanted to try Grasp just to see how it feels. Our opponent comes in with 2 unblockable damage. We have to take it, and then the Kodachi's coming in for 2 because of Benji's ability. And then we take another 2. That's the thing about Benji going first. It's so, man, like it's like you just take unblockable damage and you can't do anything about it. You basically just start the game lower life total. Okay, and we draw up, and again, for some reason, we're missing our Go Again effect. And of course, looking at this hand, I'm really wishing I had Quill Hand, because I could Mordred Tide, become, toss one of my attacks to find Sonata, pop the Quill Hand, pop Skeletor, do a Sonata play. Cool, so I decided my best line is just to play the Mordred Tide and then come at the Shrill. So this is 7 physical, and I bank 2 rune chance for next turn, and just hoping that my opponent doesn't have a very strong turn, like just like how I didn't have a very strong turn. But they throw equipment in front of this, so that tells me they probably have a really strong turn. So unfortunate. I'm hoping our armor gets there, but that's the thing, right? I mean, my Benji opponent sees my armor, so if they think they can go off, then they must have a way to get over my equipment. Okay, they start with Crane Dance. So very similar position as the previous game, where they need this to hit to use all the equipment activations. But if I put too much armor in front of this, and they go ahead and do the attack reaction on this, then I don't have the armor to block the Spring Tidings. And this time I've learned from my mistake that they've got that arm speed to give this +1. So if I want to block this with armor, I will need to put Skullcap plus say grasp in front of it to, to make them use something else other than just their equipment. So putting 2 pieces of equipment in front of this didn't seem worth it to me, so I go ahead and take this and let them do their use all their stuff. Okay, Crane Dance for 1 go again, can't block it. Oh, sorry, 2 go again because of Benji's ability. Flood of Force, can't block this either. And then they Spring Tidings, and they use the one in their Banish, so, they're hiding more information from me, which is good. I think, so now if they say I had a Spring Tidings in hand, or in Arsenal, then I know there's only one other card I need to play around, but now it's, do I play around 2 Razor Reflexes? Do I play around a Razor Reflex and Ancestral? Do I play around a Razor Reflex and a Spring Tidings? It's, my opponent has put us in a very difficult position here. So I decided I'm gonna play around a Razor Reflex. I put 5 block in front of this. My opponent says no reactions, and then they play the second Spring Tidings. I go and put 2 block, my remaining 2 block in front of this, and then they Razor Reflex this one. So they did have Razor Reflex plus Spring Tidings, which was just, there was no way we could have played around that. If I only put 2 block in front of the first Spring Tidings, then they'll Razor Reflex that one. If I put 5 block in front of that one, then they Razor Reflex the second one. So that was just, my opponent had Spring Tidings and Razor Reflex in hand. It's just a bit too much for us. Yep, so now they coming at us with 1 blockable damage and drawing more cards. Two, and then they Razor Reflex their last unblockable thing, and we die there. So yeah, both games our opponent managed to find both Spring Tidings. First game we managed to, still survive it. Second game, not so lucky. So this game might be sort of evidence for the claim that we should probably run Quill Hand going second, just to, shorten the time our opponent has, and just force cards out of the hand, perhaps. At the same time, if our opponent didn't have sort of exactly Razor Reflex and Spring Tidings there, it would have been tough for them to get over Grass, Skeletor, and Skullcap. So, not sure. I think it would require a few more games before I make that decision. But yeah, those were 2 games. Thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed it.